You're looking at a heavy military tank camped safely at the edge of the map, actively avoiding combat. Suddenly, a teammate wedges a transport car underneath its treads and violently shoves it forward into the line of fire. This friendly sabotage happens because the game's mechanics allow that tank driver to operate completely independently. They don't take a penalty for sitting in the back, soaking up resources while the rest of the team pushes the objective. This is the result of frictionless design. Over the last decade, multiplayer games have steadily stripped away dependencies, adding auto-healing health bars and universal ammo caches to make the experience highly accessible for casual solo players. When you remove those dependencies, you create a vacuum. Players no longer need to rely on the medic for a health pack or the support class for a magazine. They can survive alone, which actively encourages them to play selfishly. Developers stripped away mechanical limitations to maximize individual freedom. In doing so, they accidentally destroyed the structural foundation of community cooperation. To see how cooperation is actually built, we have to look back at the rigid architecture of older titles, like 2005's Battlefield 2. This diagram maps strict class deficiencies. An engineer node links to a tank for repairs, but needs a protective link from an assault node to survive. Player nodes are blocked from spawning freely, funneled instead to a central squad leader node, forcing physical grouping. Above that, a strict chain of command mechanic dictated the macro strategy. A single commander issued orders to the squad leaders, who were then responsible for enforcing those objectives on the ground. These hard limits acted as a trial by fire. If you tried to play as a lone wolf, the mechanics actively punished you. You would run out of ammo, succumb to injuries, or simply get pinned down. True cooperative gameplay does not emerge because players decide to be nice to each other. It is engineered through calculated, mechanical suffering that forces strangers to rely on one another to survive. When modern studios refuse to supply this mechanical friction, deeply invested communities literally rewrite the game code to put it back. This practice is known as modifying history. Unpaid players act as revisionist historians, building entirely new software patches to inject harsh historical constraints into otherwise streamlined games. Take a look at this data comparison chart. On the left, we see simple, symmetrical statistics of a standard army unit in Room Total War. On the right, the complex asymmetrical variables introduced by the Europa Barbarora mod fix the casual portrayal of ancient warfare. In other instances, like the Eve of Destruction mod, players built out an entirely unrepresented conflict, the Vietnam War, specifically to enforce missing physical constraints and navigate complex historical narratives. The ethos driving this unremunerated labor is incredibly consistent. These modders view their highly restrictive creations as a public good, intended to educate the player base and preserve historical memory. Modding in this context is a direct grassroots rebellion against the industry's obsession with instant gratification. It proves that a significant portion of the audience actually craves the exact friction that developers keep trying to erase. Whether it's players physically pushing a lazy teammate into the line of fire, or amateur coders writing scripts, to enforce 13th century geography, the core psychological motivation remains identical. We often assume that maximum freedom in a digital space automatically equals maximum enjoyment. The data and player behavior suggest the exact opposite. Deep psychological engagement derives directly from strict limitations. It comes from relying on others and adhering to community-constituted standards that give our actions meaning. Removing all the rough edges to make an experience palatable to everyone ultimately strips away the soul of the experience. And if you refuse to build the friction, the community will build it for you.